Next up on the broadcast, Congressman Mo Brooks of Huntsville is back in studio with us. Congressman, welcome back to Capitol Journal.
My pleasure. It's good to be here.
Congressman, you've been on the road a lot lately since you announced that you are running for the U.S. Senate again. This will be your second go-round in an attempt to win a seat in the U.S. Senate, but this time it's for what many consider to be a legacy seat, and that of the retiring Richard Shelby. Does the prospect of succeeding Richard Shelby seem intimidating at all?
None whatsoever. It's not a question of who was there before you. It's a question of what you do when you get there. And what I'm going to do, as best I can, is try to protect the foundational principles that have made America the greatest nation in world history. And so that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm appreciative of Richard Shelby in the shoes that he's filled before him, Jeremiah Denton's. I'm appreciative of Doug Jones and Jeff Sessions, and before him, Hal Heflin. But each of them were individuals. They each handled their duties in Washington in different ways. And that, I anticipate, will be the same of whoever wins this seat in 2022.
I mentioned you've been on the road a lot. Tell me about the reception you've been getting, the support you're hearing.
Well, the reception has been excellent. Quite frankly, the best I've ever received in any kind of endeavor of this nature. My name ID is much higher across the state than it used to be. People are familiar with the aggressive stands I have taken on some major public policy issues, and they understand that I'm a fighter, and I won't be intimidated by these kind of attacks that you get when you're a conservative leader in Washington, D.C. And I've been very pleased, quite frankly, with the support that we've seen in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Wetumpka, Dothan, Montgomery, Spanish Fort, Mobile, even the rattlesnakes I'm not sure I got along with so well.
In Alabama.
In Alabama at their rodeo. But the people who are handling the rattlesnakes did swell with.
Congressman, you mentioned the aggressive stands you've taken. Your critics contend that they feel you're too polarizing. How do you react to that scenario?
When you're talking about the fight between free enterprise and socialism, you better believe I'm as polarizing as can be with respect to socialists. When you're talking about the fight between moral values and amoral values, you better believe that the folks who are advocating amoral values consider me to be polarizing. By way of example, some of these people in Washington don't understand the difference between a man and a woman. They're science deniers. So yeah, when they want to allow men who pretend to be women to compete in women's athletics, taking playing time and scholarships from women, well, yeah, I'm going to be polarizing to people who think like that. And I'm not going to back down one bit. So it all depends on who you're polarizing to. And I want to be as polarizing as possible to those who believe in bigger government, higher taxes, amoral values, who don't care that much for national defense, who prefer socialism, which is dictatorial, over free enterprise, which is based on freedom and liberty.
Congressman, you took a lot of heat after your fiery speech on January 6th, the speech that was delivered before the Capitol violence. You have since then said that you never intended to incite violence, and I think in recent days...
Okay, I don't perceive any heat, but go ahead.
Well...
I mean, it's been tremendous. I appreciate what some of my opponents have done in that regard, the socialists, the fake news media, some of our establishment Republicans. The only question I have is whether I need to disclose their attacks on me as an in-kind contribution on my Senate FEC, Federal Election Commission reports, because it's been tremendously beneficial.
You have in recent days along those lines called some of those rioters at the Capitol on January 6th. I believe the word you used was fools. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, they made a bad mistake. And let's be real clear. I have never in any way, shape, or form with my remarks encouraged people to engage in violent conduct. In fact, I've been giving rally-type speeches and political speeches for going on 4 decades. None of them ever result in any kind of violence. And if you look at the investigative reports that have been coming down, that have been shared with members of the United States Congress, it's quite clear that nothing that was said at the ellipse speeches had anything to do with the attack on the United States Capitol on January 6th, that those attacks were planned well in advance of the ellipse speeches by militant elements of various groups. So that's one thing that I knew was going to come out, and it's been coming out, and that's caused, quite frankly, some of the socialists on Capitol Hill to apologize to some Republicans for the false allegations they have made about Republicans. But that having all been said, that was foolish conduct. It was counterproductive. It undermined our effort to help expose the voter fraud and election theft activities that occurred in November of 2020 in the general election for the President of the United States and a number of other things. So it's counterproductive to that effort. Also, what did it achieve? all it's going to achieve is a lot of people are going to end up in jail. And I would submit to you that the people who are engaged in that illegal conduct, a very, very good number of them would concur, and they have been apologizing, that their conduct was out of character. They never should have resorted to violence. They should have engaged in their First Amendment right to freedom of speech and protest and to seek redress of their grievances from the government. And that's the way it was supposed to have worked out. But unfortunately, these militant elements had taken advantage of that protest by people who are at the Trump rally to the detriment of our cause and the detriment of our country.
Congressman, do you think it's possible to win over some of those critics of yours who have made light of some of the things you said on January 6th?
I'm not trying to win over the socialists. I'm not trying to win over the people in the fake news media. I mean, I know they have to exaggerate. You're in that business. You know sometimes people exaggerate in that business, even tell things that are not necessarily true or they haven't done their homework on to determine whether they're true in order to increase the hits, which in turn, or the ratings, which in turn increases the monetary return to some of those folks who go on the internet, some of those folks who are in the private sector on TV and whatnot. I'm not trying to get the votes of those people. I'm trying to get the votes of the people who believe in the foundational principles that have combined to make America the greatest nation in world history. And fortunately, in Alabama, that's a majority of the citizenship. Those are the votes you need.
Do you think there's enough of those people on the other side, though, that might hurt your chances, or are you not even focusing on that?
I don't focus. Look, there have been lots of fights between free enterprise and socialism over the last century. Ever since Karl Marx in the 1800s and the experimentation with socialism, first by Russia, then the Soviet Union, and communist China, and North Korea right now, Cuba, just go down the list. Germany under Adolf Hitler in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. I intend on beating the socialists. I'm not going to be compromising with them because what they believe in is dictatorial top-down government, and freedom is an anathema to dictatorial top-down government. And I believe in the rights of individuals and citizens to do what they think is in their best interest and let them make the decisions that control their own lives and the lives of their families. So I'm not trying to become more socialist. I'm trying to beat them. Now, people who are confused, and there are some in the middle who are confused about the merits of free enterprise versus the merits of socialism, yes, I want to explain to them why free enterprise works, socialism doesn't, so that they will be persuaded to join our cause in the fight for our country.
Congressman, how important is former President Trump's support of you in this election? It was an issue in your last Senate race.
Well, since then, Donald Trump has endorsed me twice. I'm the only candidate in this race who has, in fact, been endorsed by President Trump, both in 2018 and in 2020, and he gave strong words in that regard. And also, the president asked me to be co-chairman of his statewide election campaign in 2020, and I accepted. I thought it was a high honor to receive that kind of request from the president's organization. And in this instance, in the state of Alabama, the past data indicates that getting endorsement from Donald Trump is like hitting a gold mine. Donald Trump is well received in this state. He won the state of Alabama by a very large margin in 2020. And in a Republican primary, the polling data that we've seen suggests that an endorsement from President Trump, about 70% or so perceive that to be favorable, 10% unfavorable. 7-to-1 ratio, that's pretty doggone good.
Stephen Miller, who was a top aide to former President Trump, stood with you when you made your campaign announcement in Huntsville recently and endorsed you. You see that as a prelude to maybe Trump's endorsement as well?
Well, I can't speak for President Trump, and I would hazard, let's just say it's not wise for me to disclose any of our confidential communications. Donald Trump will speak for himself at whatever time he chooses and whatever manner he chooses, and if he's going to endorse or not endorse, he'll make that statement known at some point in time. But Stephen Miller, being one of Donald Trump's closest confidants, extremely strong on border security, Donald Trump's speechwriter, served in the Donald Trump White House for 4 years, I think that's a huge symbolic gesture. And Stephen Miller's comment that Mo Brooks over the last 4 years has been #1 in the United States Congress having the president's back, that's huge.
We're out of time, but in 60 seconds, despite your lightning rod reputation among some folks, you don't see that as a deterrent in this election at all?
Seeing what is a deterrent?
Your lightning rod reputation.
Oh no, right now, the people of Alabama, they want folks in Washington, D.C. who will fight for our country against the amoral socialist effort that we see all too often.
I assume that as many stops as you've made already, you'll be making a lot more stops between now and next year?
We have close to 400 days, and I'll be making rounds around the state on a very regular basis so that people can see for themselves that I'm one of these folks. If you want a principled conservative, I've got the track record that proves that that's what I am, and also I won't back down in pursuit of what's in the best interest of the United States of America and hence the citizens of the state of Alabama.
Congressman Mo Brooks, candidate for the U.S. Senate, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
You bet.